Feilu Novel Network A.Level Contracted Novel. The fruit of One Piece's dream, it doesn't matter if it's illusory, it doesn't matter if it's real. Welcome, of, my world. Fayan Lodi Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Origin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After being sentenced to 20 years in prison, one day on a certain ship, I inexplicably came to this world and was caught by pirates as a laborer. What puzzled Lodi the most was that the captain put a fruit in front of him, the reason being that the fruit was too strange. Then Lodi understood, this is a drug test. Under the devastation of the navy, the pirates in the once strongest sea, the East China Sea, have not fallen to a point where even the devil fruit is rarely known. Of course, there are too many types of fruits in this world, and many of them are highly toxic. For an ignorant captain, this approach is no less reasonable. Under the gaze of many crew members gloating, Lodi nervously took a bite of the pomelo-shaped fruit. If you have to describe it in 4 words, it can only be said to be too unpleasant. The pirates laughed heartily as they looked at Lodi with a bitter expression on his face, but no one noticed the indescribable joy in his eyes. This unpleasant smell, along with the slightest abnormality in the body, it seems, what are they all interpreting? Chapter 1. F.A. Aien Lodi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A flat boat, the young man lying diagonally on the small boat, his eyes slightly narrowed, looking listless. This is a calm morning, with the sunrise slanting over the sea, and a gentle breeze blowing over the Buddha's sea, creating ripples. A carrier pigeon flew from a distance, threw a stack of paper high in the small boat, and then slowly flew down to stop on the edge of the boat, looking at the boy with a humanized gaze. The young man first picked up the stack of paper next to him casually. On the homepage was a photo of a rugged and domineering person, with his arrogant posture and scars all over his body. Of course, what the young man really cared about was the number below the photo, 10 million Bailey. The young man hesitated for a moment, crumpled the paper into a ball, casually threw it into the sea, and continued flipping through the next wanted notice. The carrier pigeon seemed impatient and let out a dissatisfied cry. The young man lifted his head and slowly looked at it. 10 minutes later. Okay, you won. The young man helplessly took out 1,000 bellies from his pocket and threw them to the carrier pigeon. After receiving the money, the carrier pigeon squinted its eyes and showed a humanized expression, then waved its wings and slowly took off, flying towards the distance. It took a few minutes to select a list of pirates with a bounty of less than 10 million yuan, and then picked out a few unsightly ones to fold together and put in their pockets. The young man with nothing to do looked at the boundless sea in confusion, touched the scar covered by his hair on his forehead, and said to himself, this world is really dangerous. This is a noisy bar, and in this world where pirates can be seen everywhere, people have become accustomed to the fact that pirates can freely enter and exit bars, as if it should be. The so-called Navy often turns a blind eye to this phenomenon. There are too many pirates, and a sentence from Roger the One Piece before his death, like a fuse, completely ignited an era of readiness. Do you want my treasure? If you want it, I can give it all to you. Go find it, the great root. I put everything in the world there. For the sake of so-called wealth, for the almost pathological freedom, and to break free from the constraints of human laws, killing and plundering have gradually become the main melody of this world. Only a few people are still struggling to support their beliefs and implement their own will. Over time, the world began to decay, and both pirates and navy could only slowly adapt to the trends of this world. The entrance to the bar was slowly opened, and a young man walked in slowly. He first looked around and then walked towards the bar counter as if there was no one around. Pirate hunters need to remember those strong and weak pirates. Similarly, as pirates, if you don't even know what you need to pay attention to, you will either be submerged in the tide of history or have become so powerful that you can ignore many people. Of course, the pirates in the bar don't belong to either of these two, so "Captain, isn't that the famous pirate hunter Fayan Lodi?" "What, it doesn't look very good either." "It seems that the Water Fox pirate squad is not very good either. It will definitely be destroyed by such people. Hee, if we kill him, our reputation will surpass that of the Water Fox pirates, and other pirates will also be attracted to him. This will be very helpful for us to enter the Great Sea route in the future." The so-called captain took a sip of wine and examined the young man sitting at the counter. He was about 17 or 8 years old, with flowing hair, a delicate face, and a listless expression. It was hard to see what his strength was. Continuing to take a sip of wine, the captain couldn't help but sneer. In this world, being good looks is useless, and scars are the honor that belongs to pirates. A desire to kill him to achieve the reputation of his pirate team emerged from his heart, and his eyes gradually became more bloodthirsty. But years of experience as a pirate have forced him to suppress his impulses. Fighting can make people strong, but equally important is fighting, which makes people no longer as naive as before. One son's mistake is that everyone else loses. Some people and some things are not as simple as they seem on the surface. Since he can be like the pirate hunter Aien. The name Lodi still lives to this day, so he has a reason and power to exist. The captain firmly believes in this because he believes so, and at the same time, he is still alive. However, not all pirates have the same level of consciousness as him, and another group of pirates sitting next to him can't wait to go up and provoke. The leader of a pirate group named Casso, who thought he was very domineering, walked towards the young man and came to the counter. He pounded the counter with his right hand, only to see the glass in front of the young man jump, and the wine inside spilled onto his face as he wished. "Kid, let's go home and have some milk. Alcohol is not something that people like you can drink," he blatantly provoked. As soon as he finished speaking, the other guys around him cooperated and laughed wildly, with a constant stream of mockery. "Really, that's great. What?" The young man wiped his face with his hand as if there was no one around. His mouth slowly curved and he continued to lean towards the pirates, as if muttering to himself, "I happen to be running out of money. I won't hesitate to accept your treasure on the ship and your bounty. You guy." The captain clearly felt unhappy with the young man's disregard for himself, slowly pulling out his knife from his waist. Suddenly, years of being a pirate made him feel an anomaly around him. It was too quiet, too quiet. This bar should have been noisy. "Captain, there seems to be something wrong with the situation," said one of the subordinates in a tone of panic. Casso turned around and saw a scene that made his mind flustered. In the originally crowded position, there was surprisingly no one, except for myself and my subordinates, only the young man who was still sitting still existed. No illusions, no reality. So, welcome, belonging to my world. Chapter 2. Cruel yet realistic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. One day, you see someone who was arrogant and domineering a second ago, and then in the next moment, they are already lying on the ground like dead people. So, for most people, their first reaction should be fear. The known strength is only awe-inspiring because there is a possibility of transcendence. Unless it is the force that overwhelms everything and makes people despair, fear will only arise from despair when people are no longer able to rise up against it. Fear can only arise from the unknown and immeasurable. So this eerie scene scared the pirates, and the noisy tavern truly became silent, as if silence could dispel the confusion that originated from within. What? The boy took out the bounty from his pocket and looked at it. He found that the captain's bounty was only 500,000 Bailey, and was slightly disappointed. The East China Sea is indeed the weakest sea, just because the strongest pirate has appeared here. The young man looked around, and the pirate who was swept by his gaze instinctively shrank his head, feeling uneasy inside. The young man sat back in his seat, dragging his chin with his right hand. If the pirate present had the courage to pay attention, he would be surprised to find that there was an indescribable weariness in the depths of his eyes. The side effects of using fruit abilities too frequently are gradually becoming apparent. This is a fatigue that originates from the depths of the soul. To recover, for Lodi, the only thing she can do is close her eyes and use time to slowly heal the wound. But for Lodi, time is indeed the most necessary thing. Even though he knows the side effects of fruit ability, he still has to constantly use it to make his use of fruit ability more proficient. In fact, in this world, no matter who stops moving forward, what awaits will only be sinking and disappearing. In this world where the strong are respected and the law of the fittest is fully demonstrated, people without power are sad. Slowly touching the scar on his forehead has become an almost instinctive action for Lodi. After arriving in this world, I was injured for the first time, questioned my own strength for the first time, and approached death for the first time. Many times, this scar carries too much meaning and is also the reason why Lodi dare not relax. After finishing the last glass of wine, Lodi stood up, but this action touched the nerves of the pirates who were paying attention to Lodi. Under their uneasy gaze, Lodi walked out of the bar with slow steps. This made the pirates in the tavern breathe a sigh of relief. As for the pirates who were still unconscious, no one paid attention at this time. There would never be a pirate who was foolish enough to exchange other pirates for bounty and also set themselves up. After leaving the bar, Lodi looked up at the rising sun in mid-air, but a hint of confusion appeared in her eyes. Everything came too suddenly came to this world, and suddenly obtained the devil's fruit. From the initial confusion to the fear of encountering pirates, from the excitement of obtaining fruits to questioning one's own strength, and then to the confusion of not knowing what to do, it seems like a cycle, but there is too much experience in between. Lodi also thought about forming a pirate group on his own, but that was just an ignorant idea when he first gained fruit abilities. This is too difficult. Not only is it possible to be pursued by the Navy at any time, but finding a capable and trustworthy partner is also a rare occurrence. Most importantly, Lodi has no pursuit of One Piece. In other words, there is no dream. A pirate group without dreams means that a pirate group has already ended before departure. Just as Lodi was lost in thought, a loud noise suddenly came from ahead. Lodi looked in the direction of the sound and saw a group of people dressed as pirates chasing an orange-haired girl while shouting. Of course, this was not the real reason that attracted Lodi's attention. After all, in this era of slaughter as the theme, such things would not be noticed by anyone. If one day you encounter a beggar begging you to give him a meal, kind-hearted people may generously solve the problem out of sympathy or other reasons, but if one day encounter someone, and even worse, such a thing has become commonplace, what kind of choice would one make? The indifferent gaze of the passers-by has already answered this question very well. Of course, not everyone is like this. There will always be a few who dare to stand up for their beliefs and try to break the rules formed by people unintentionally or intentionally in this secular world. No matter how dark and corrupt the era is, such people will always exist. Some people do this and miraculously succeed. We call them the creators of the heroic XOR era. Then, the remaining losers will be ridiculed by the world because they will not understand why they should do so, and failure is not convincing. Man is a strange animal with ambitious ambition, yet afraid of change, because the current environment has at least adapted. Although the change may be better, before it happens, who can be certain that the unknown is the easiest thing to fear and shy away from? Lodi is just an ordinary person, without strong beliefs, ambition to change the rules, and the ability to change everything. Perhaps helping this girl is just a matter of raising your hand. In the original world, if you don't take action, there will be at least moral condemnation. However, in this world, if you help, you may still be judged as a strange party. It is such a world, cruel and real. Chapter 3. The Intersection of Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lodi chose to continue his daydreaming career, but obviously things wouldn't go according to people's wishes. The girl fell and at the moment she ran past Lodi, she fell in front of him. The bag held in the hand also broke free from the control of the hand. Scattered on the ground were gold coins, like mischievous children, rushing around happily after breaking free from their restraints. People went crazy, and those who were not kind-hearted bent down without hesitation to pick it up. Some timid people, after a slight consideration, couldn't resist the temptation to join in. The group of pirates chasing the girl were momentarily stunned by this dramatic scene, and immediately reacted. The captain, dressed up, decisively drew a knife from his waist and struck at the passers-by, picking up coins. "This is the gold coin of my greedy wolf pirate group. Whoever dares to pick it up again will have such a person," he said, and viciously waved his knife, pointing to the passerby lying in the pool of blood. People were afraid and stopped their movements. The timid ones had already started running away, leaving the land of trouble. Then, with the role of role models, the crowd dispersed in unison. The captain was obviously very satisfied with his performance, and the young brothers wisely went to pick up the scattered coins. Lodi had originally planned to leave, but it was obvious that the girl had stolen someone else's treasure. But bowing her head and holding it back casually made Lodi's heart tremble for a moment. The stubborn yet sorrowful gaze, the expression of gritting her teeth silently despite being bruised all over from the fall, made Lodi see something she didn't have deep in her eyes. It was a kind of persistence, mixed with hope and despair. Lodi instinctively extended his hand to her, and the girl was stunned for a moment, but did not respond. Lodi knew that this was a spiritual distance, and she instinctively rejected him. Perhaps it was the same for anyone. Lodi smiled for a moment, withdrew her hand, took out the bounty from her pocket, flipped through it a few times, and looked at the 5 million Bailey bounty on top, with a curved corner of her mouth. The captain walked over with a fierce smile, looking at the girl lying on the ground like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Just as he was about to say a few harsh words, he suddenly realized that there was still an unintelligent one who hadn't left. After a moment of confusion, he looked at the fragile young man and continued to laugh wildly. "Kid, you're not a fan, are you?" "No, I'm not. How could I possibly be an accomplice to this kind of person?" The girl endured the pain and slowly stood up from the ground, speaking disdainfully. What kind of person am I?" Lodi, leaning against the wall, scratched her nose with a hint of frustration in her tone. "Ha ha ha, it looks like a little white face eating soft food." Seeing everything under his control, the captain's mood noticeably improved, and he said in a sarcastic tone. "Is that right?" Lodi lowered her head slightly, and an inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Being too handsome really disappoints you, for someone as ugly but terrifying as you are." Despite being in danger, the girl couldn't help but laugh. It is obvious that this captain did not have the same kind of cultivation as Lodi, because he was angry. There is an irregular rule in this world, and it is easy to say what others should do. Just pick up a knife and chop them over. Strength is the key. However, at the moment when he raised his knife, the captain was stunned. Because the surroundings became too quiet, the noise of my little brothers suddenly disappeared, and I looked around in fear. "Isn't it on the street? Why are you in prison?" The captain's eyes showed a hint of confusion, and he looked at the boy wearing the same prison uniform, trying to find the answer from his mouth. "Okay, this is the situation," Lodi shrugged, "but it's a long story." "Then you can make a long story short for me," the captain interrupted impatiently and waved his knife as a threat. "We've been arrested." Look, what's behind us?" The captain instinctively looked back, without anything, and immediately realized that he had been deceived. This kind of thing had happened in the past, but what happened now was too strange, which disrupted his mood. When he realized it, he instinctively wanted to turn around, but felt a great resistance throughout his body, and his action became much slower. The victory or defeat is only in an instant, losing means losing, winning means winning. Watching the dagger inserted from behind and piercing through his chest, the captain reluctantly fell down. Everyone watched as the captain raised his knife, then inexplicably stopped for a moment, and then fell down in a free fall with a bang. Under the frightened gaze of the crowd, Lodi slowly bent down, picked up the knife on the ground, waved it a few times, and looked at it as if muttering to himself, "A good knife, I'll take it as a trophy." "Hello, fellow party members, what? I think we can go now." Lodi, holding a knife, walked forward with a leisurely pace as if no one was around, feeling waves of dizziness constantly pounding his body. The girl was stunned for a moment, looking at Lodi's back. She didn't know what was on her mind, so she gritted her teeth and followed up. Only a group of pirates who were lost in thought were left behind. Chapter 4. Nami. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Waves of fatigue constantly pounded Lodi's nerves. Lodi took a breath and turned into a street corner, sitting on the ground without any image, leaning against the wall. Lodi felt his vision sometimes blurred and sometimes clear, and drowsiness kept coming in. "Do you seem to be sick? Why are you still there?" It's not that Lodi doesn't want to lift his head, but he doesn't have much will to sit on this kind of thing anymore. This exhaustion originating from the soul is the most helpless thing that can make people constantly relax, as if doing anything has no meaning. The girl was obviously very dissatisfied with Lodi's tone. "Although you asked me to come over," looking at Lodi like this, she originally wanted to say something, but ultimately didn't say anything. A moment of silence. "My name is Nami, what's your name?" "What?" Lodi finally had the motivation to lift her head, and for the first time, she began to carefully look at this girl. Her orange hair, slightly childish face, and her appearance of being 15 or 6 years old. Such a lovely girl, if in the original world, would probably be the kind of person that everyone admired. Of course, this was not what Lodi really cared about, until Lodi's gaze swept over the pattern on her left button, and finally a hint of emotion appeared in Lodi's eyes. In the original world, Nami should be the girl that Lodi admires the most. Her strength, cuteness, persistence, there are too many things, ordinary yet extraordinary. In this world where the law of the jungle is fully portrayed, an ordinary girl can persist according to her own will, which requires great courage and perseverance. Lodi's silence, in Nami's understanding, was a so-called disregard, which made the girl very angry. She originally wanted to leave, but after thinking about it, she managed to hold back. This matter is too important for her, so important that she can give everything for it. Recalling the scene where the captain of the pirate group suddenly fell to the ground just now, a strong desire surged in my heart. If possible, if possible. So, the two people with different thoughts fell into a moment of silence again. Many things don't need to be expressed in words, Lodi understood. The meaning in Nami's eyes seemed to touch a hidden idea deep in the girl's heart with her own vanity and strength. At this moment, Lodi suddenly had a longing for the true meaning of power in her heart, and she could even feel that exhaustion was no longer so powerless. If strong enough to break free from all constraints. But the world itself will not change according to individual will, whether it is desire or resistance, at least it will not be able to complete a person's transformation in the next moment. In the eyes of true strength, Lodi's strength is nothing more than ants. It's not a matter of fruit ability, or rather, the ability of this demon fruit is too powerful, so strong that Lodi almost got lost in it at the beginning. I remember a passage I read on a forum before, where natural fruit cultivators can make people stand at the top of the world pyramid, but those at the highest point will eventually be superhuman. For example, the owner of the shockwave fruit, now known as the world's strongest pirate, Whitebeard. The fruit of dreams lifts the human soul into a world constructed by one's own consciousness, like a god who dominates the life and death of others in the world they shape. The most terrifying thing is that no matter how long the dream lasts, the real world is only a momentary thing, which means that victory or defeat in the eyes of others is only a momentary matter. In theory, this ability is impeccable, and Lodi even believes that if the fruit ability were possessed by people like Luffy, with their monster-like physical strength and willpower, not to mention the Pirate King, they might become the gods of this world. With just a preliminary understanding of the use of fruit power, Lodi easily solved the pirate group attempting to enslave him, feeling as if everything was under control. In his dream, he could accomplish too many things that were impossible in reality. As long as you control the opponent, make them unable to move, then slowly take out the dagger and strike it down, victory is as simple as that. Consciousness determines death, and in the real world, one will fall into a deep coma state. There is no weakest fruit, only the weakest user, Lodi deeply believed. Compared to the original world, the physical fitness of people in this world is really excellent. Not to mention people like Luffy, even ordinary people have several times the physical strength of the original world. Lodi, who inexplicably arrived in this world, still had the same body as before, which directly meant Lodi's tragedy. The use of the fruit of dreams requires the will to sustain the entire dream. At the same time, creating or realizing certain ideas in the dream requires a certain degree of mental and physical energy, which will be clearly felt by users in the dream. Moreover, it will affect the soul. The more unrealistic things are, the more mental and physical effort is required to complete them in the dream. It should also be noted that after a period of explosive strength, due to physical limitations, Lodi finally encountered a bottleneck where the capable individual was unable to fully unleash the perfect ability of the fruit. All Lodi can do is to constantly familiarize himself with the fruit ability in order to develop deeper abilities in the dream fruit, and also to strengthen his abilities in the real world itself. No matter what aspect, it cannot be immediately effective. What makes Lodi most conflicted is that the side effects of dream fruit have a huge impact on him. This sense of powerlessness originating from his soul always gives Lodi a feeling of powerlessness when doing things. So when it comes to eliminating the dragon pirates, Lodi is really powerless. At least for now, he doesn't have the strength to defeat the dragon. Chapter 5. The Power of Nothingness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Lodi woke up again, she found herself lying on a bed. The room was small and not decorated, but it gave a clean and tidy feeling. The blanket felt warm, emitting a faint fragrance, with an indescribable warmth. Lodi got up from the bed, covered her forehead with her right hand, and felt her mental state. Although she was still very tired, she somewhat recovered. Just as Lodi was about to sort out what had happened before she fell into a coma, the door was opened. The girl standing at the door had orange hair, slightly playful eyes, and a slightly pouted mouth, giving a feeling of vitality, in stark contrast to Lodi's decadent bed. The girl walked up to Lodi with steps, hands akimbo, her head slightly approaching Lodi, and looked down at Lodi with a downward gaze. Lodi was so flustered by her sight that she couldn't help but scratch her head with her hand and ask, "What's wrong?" "Schwa, I don't know where I got the paper," which was densely covered with words. The girl held the paper with one hand and placed it in front of Lodi, seemingly wanting him to see it clearly. In fact, in just an instant, she brought the paper back in front of her and read it with a serious expression. Accommodation fee of 1 million Belize, meal expenses of 2 million Belize, care fee of 5 million Bailey. Lodi stared blankly at the young girl in front of her, who was constantly reciting the text. "Do you have any objections?" The girl shook the paper. "I said, are you sure the unit is 10,000? Are you saying that Mrs. Attentive and Thoughtful Service is not worth this amount?" She pursed her lips and looked very angry. Lodi looked carefully at her face with a serious expression, paused for a moment, then slowly looked down, then his gaze stopped above her chest. Finally, he showed a disappointed expression and lay back in bed, weakly making a "oh" sound. The girl was stunned for a moment, then left in anger and went straight into a state of rampage. "What's your attitude? Pulling the blanket hard, get up now. This is my bed, you bastard." Lodi huddled under the blanket and continued in a tone that was infuriating and not worth his life, "Don't worry about this little thing. You can't get up," unable to afford, bang, ignored the defensive blow. "In 10 minutes. Okay." Lodi touched the big lump on her head and bit her gums in pain. looking helplessly at the girl in front of her. Are you saying I've been unconscious for 2 whole days? Thank you very much, then. Well, so the money thing. Talking about money can hurt a lot of emotions. Not talking about money hurts more emotions, I said, but I don't want to see who made me unconscious. Cut, it's you meddling in your own business. Hello, what? Do you seem very strong? The expectant gaze Lodi was looking very uncomfortable and instinctively responded, paused for a moment, and then said seriously, ordinary pirates under 10 million can easily handle it, as for those over 10 million. How's it going? I once fought against the leader of the Water Fox Pirates, who offered a reward of 12 million. Although I won, Lodi touched the scar on his forehead and continued, feeling a bit dejected, I'm still too weak. Yeah, he said in a disappointed tone, then pretended not to care and pouted. It's not that good either. I'm really sorry to disappoint you, who has been chased all over the street by 5 million. Upon hearing what you said, Nami's eyes lit up and she muttered to herself in a positive tone, I still have the qualifications to be my little brother. Alright, I've decided. Let's go steal the pirate's treasure together. I'll use the money I earned to repay the debt I owe. Lodi's mouth twitched and he looked at Nami speechlessly. What's going on with that innocent and hopeful look? It's shameful to be cute. Lodi smiled bitterly and said helplessly, whatever, but I can't overuse my abilities. How about I cover up if you fail? Unexpectedly, someone would agree with such an opinion, which made Nami's first reaction hesitant. She felt caught off guard as she was preparing to bargain. Money or something is optional for me. I just need a reliable partner to help me find a place to sleep when similar situations arise. Nami stared at Lodi in a daze, suddenly feeling her eyes sour. This reaction made Lodi feel a bit at a loss. Everyone said they're not interested in Loli anymore. Lodi lay back in bed, covered her body with a blanket, and turned her back to Nami. What, Loli? I'm already 16 years old. This is not a matter of age, damn it, what are you trying to express? Tugged at the blanket, when do you still want to stay in my bed and get up? Don't worry about such small matters, right? You can't get up. Unable to afford, bang, a blow that disregards defense. Chapter 6. Ignorance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In short, Nami placed the map on the desktop and pointed to it to draw a line, after stealing the treasure, I will escape along this route. Of course, this is in the case of being discovered, but with my skills, the likelihood of this happening is not high. Oh. What does your distrust look mean? Nami waved her hand as a threat, if it's exposed, I'll throw the treasure in this corner along the way, and you can go there and pick it up. Do you understand? Oh, can you be more energetic? If you fail, you will be fined 3 days without eating. Lodi's mouth twitched and he looked at Nami speechlessly. Alright, let's go, the girl walked towards the dock full of vitality. Lodi did not stay in the corner according to Nami's instructions, but instead followed behind Nami without being noticed. I don't know if it was a problem with Nami's theft of technology or for some reason, but Lodi heard a commotion coming from the dock and then saw Nami running out of the dock at an extremely fast speed, followed by a group of pirates. Lodi helplessly covered her head with her hand and slowly walked towards the path that Nami had to escape. Nami clearly focused all her attention on the escape and ran over from Lodi, leaving Lodi speechless for a moment. The pirates were chasing hard, and the captain's words that didn't catch up with you became their biggest motivation. Suddenly, the girl in front disappeared, and just as the pirates were confused, a person walked out of the corner. Captain, why are you here? A person who looked like a pirate with a small head asked in surprise, instinctively looking back at the dock. Leave the rest to me. You guys go back to the ship first. We're going to the next stop soon. But that treasure, why, you're questioning my orders, the captain interrupted impatiently. Anyway, don't give me back yet. Yes, looking at the possibility of his captain getting angry, the pirates could only turn around and walk back. Watching the backs of the pirates recede, Lodi's mouth curved and she felt a wave of exhaustion covering her whole body. Lodi sighed. If I had the physique of Luffy, even if it was just the strength of a regular pirate with a bounty of 5 million, I wouldn't have been so embarrassed that even using a magic spell in a dream would be so difficult. The accumulation of side effects caused by multiple uses of fruit ability left Lodi feeling physically and mentally exhausted. It seems like we need to take a good rest for a while. Seeing that the pirates had disappeared without a trace, Lodi inserted her hands into her pockets and turned around, heading towards the meeting place that Nami had previously agreed upon. At night, Nami's eyes lit up as she kept counting today's gains over and over again, as if tirelessly. Lodi looked at Nami, who was completely immersed in the business of counting money. At this moment, Nami was the most energetic, with an undisguised desire for money, but without any sense of discord. Instead, it gave people a warm feeling. Lodi thought to herself that Nami was also very charming at this time. Suddenly, Lodi finally understood why people pursue power so and so. Like Blackbeard, willing to turn against his companions in order to obtain the dark fruit. Because everyone yearns to be free from constraints, there is no absolute freedom in this world, but powerful power can give a person more choices when facing something. The weak are afraid of the strong and can only choose to submit and live humbly. This is not the saddest thing. If one loses any will to resist, they are the true weak. A person can be weak, but cannot choose to sink. When Lodi recovered from her contemplation, the real picture became clear, and what caught her eye was a cute face. She was very close, and Lodi was startled and instinctively tilted back. "Why do you always daydream, this guy?" What's wrong?" "I've called you 3 times already," Nami pouted, looking very unhappy. Hee, Lodi scratched his head with his hand. "What's going on?" "Look," Nami shook her purse and said excitedly, 2 million Bailey, Daifengshu, salad of assorted fresh vegetables, continue tomorrow. Nami, let's find a smaller pirate group tomorrow." Lodi rubbed her temples with her hand, trying to dispel drowsiness. "I think your technical level needs improvement." Nami was obviously dissatisfied with Lodi's questioning of her own strength. She paused for a moment, then suddenly showed a smile and looked at Lodi with a teasing look. "It's not like you're not good, is it?" Lodi hesitated for a moment, lowered her head slightly, and suddenly pounced, pushing the exhausted Nami to the floor. Her hands supported her on both sides, and their gaze met like this. What do you want to do?" Nami was at a loss by this sudden action, speaking in a hopeful tone, her lovely face flushed. Lodi only felt waves of the young girl's body fragrance emanating, with an indescribable enjoyment. The spirit of striving to maintain drowsiness began to gradually disintegrate, slowly immersing herself in it. The body became heavier and heavier, and the eyelids also became heavier, slowly sinking down. I felt that my forehead had touched the other person. Actually. Really? Nami looked silently at the sleeping guy in front of her and forcefully overthrew him to the side. Lodi didn't have that kind of laziness when she was sleeping, but it looks quite cute. Nami patted her forehead. "Really, what am I thinking?" "Forget it," some girl muttered to herself, "I'll forgive your rudeness this time for the sake of your efforts today." Sitting on the chair, looking at the half-completed nautical chart on the table, a curve appeared at the corner of my mouth, and then my eyes became firm. "Waiting for me, everyone, I can definitely." Chapter 7. Bound Dreams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the small boat. "By the way, you can be quite reliable at times," he said, looking at Bailey in the bag in front of him with his eyes shining. "In that case, there will be 100 million Bailey soon." Lodi leaned against the boat, looking at Nami in excitement. She pouted and wanted to say something, hesitated for a moment, but ultimately didn't say anything. With Nami's intelligence, how could she not know? She just didn't want to or dare not think about it. What's the point of saying or not? Hope is better than despair, Lodi thought. Move your right hand in front of you, look at your palm, and slowly grip it. It has become stronger again, but it is still too slow. By continuously using the ability of dream fruit, my spiritual strength has grown to far higher than that of ordinary people, but the progress in physical strength is minimal. For dreams that require both mental and physical maintenance, it is extremely deadly. It's like a wooden barrel, as long as there is a short wooden board, it can never be filled with water. Nami looked at this guy who was still in a daze speechlessly. Being ignored like this made her very unhappy. She punched Lodi's head and successfully helped him recover from his daze. What? Lodi asked dejectedly, covering her head. Really, Nami sat next to Lodi. After spending 2 months together, the two became true partners. After a pause, Nami hesitated and asked, "What is Lodi planning to do in the future?" When I have raised 100 million Bailey, I don't plan on continuing to be a thief. Then I will travel around the world and fulfill my dreams, said Nami as she unconsciously became happy, as if a beautiful tomorrow had already appeared before her eyes, with a longing for the future in her eyes. Well, your dream will come true in just over a year, Lodi recalled the plot of the original work. Nami set sail when she was 18 years old, right? Congratulations for now. What's more than a year? Nami looked at Lodi in confusion and then said happily, "It's only 3 million Bailey left. Just find a few more oily pirate groups." Oh, Lodi instinctively responded, then hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, a cold sweat appeared on her forehead, and she looked at Nami, who was happy, and asked with uncertainty, "Is it only 3 million?" Nami was still immersed in the joy of impending success and didn't pay attention to Lodi's expression. She responded happily, "Yes, 3 million Bailey, so since you helped me, things have become surprisingly smooth." 3 million. As she spoke, Nami suddenly burst into tears. This girl, who always likes to hide herself with strength, even when crying, still tries to cover herself with her hands, but her face is happy. Lodi suddenly understood the feeling of Nami after Aien broke his promise, all these years of hope, hiding his cowardice, carrying that responsibility, working alone, and suddenly one day realizing that all his efforts were in vain. What kind of cruelty is this intense contrast? Failure is not scary, terrible failures are meaningless, even the motivation to continue striving has been lost. Nami. What? Nami wiped her eyes with her hand, as if to conceal her embarrassment, tilting her head slightly. I'm just too happy, the joy of completing the task. But Nami, because she didn't care much about money, Lodi ignored her own reasons and actually made her raise money more than a year earlier. Lodi knew that there were some things she had to say. Is this really useful? What's going on? Nami seemed to realize what Lodi was trying to say and forced a smile, trying to shift the topic. Does Lodi have any dreams? Nami, Lodi said as she pressed her shoulders with both hands, her tone becoming serious. You know what I want to say. What do you know? You don't know anything, Nami suddenly interrupted Lodi angrily, while instinctively pushing Lodi with her hands. Lodi was caught off guard by the sudden blow, his body losing balance. He instinctively wanted to grab something to maintain his balance, but tragically found that there were no such objects around him. Then, with a bang, he broke free from the small boat and fell into the sea. At first, Nami was still in a panic about the future, not even caring about Lodi falling into the water. Lodi did not tell her that she was a fruit-powered person, and poor Lodi fell into the sea in a head-to-toe manner. As soon as she entered, she felt like she had lost all her strength and wanted to shout for help. A mouthful of seawater surged into her mouth, and she could no longer make any sound. Are you going to die? Feeling her body slowly sinking, Lodi's heart surprisingly calmed down. Perhaps she will travel back to her original world, but unfortunately, Lodi couldn't help but imagine the scenes of herself spending the past 2 months with Nami. We were planning to steal the treasure of the pirates together, competing for the only bed at night. Nami excitedly counted Bailey's expression. In fact, oranges are very delicious, but I really want to see your energetic appearance when you are dissatisfied and angry. Thinking about it, I suddenly felt a nostalgia for this world in my heart. Original. I have already started to truly integrate into this world. Chapter 8. Awakening. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Really, Nami looked at Lodi, who was already in a coma. A big man can't even swim. Combining her hands, Nami forcefully pressed Lodi's body a few times and noticed that Lodi showed no signs of waking up. Looking at Lodi's slightly pale face, it seemed like something was on her mind. Nami's face unconsciously brewed 2 blushes. It's cheaper for you, 1 billion belly, Nami said as she broke Lodi's mouth open with her hand and lowered her head slowly. Then we'll include the interest together. Finally, their mouths and lips touched each other. Lodi felt like she was trapped in endless darkness, lazy and without any motivation, in a chaotic state. After an unknown amount of time, I suddenly felt a faint sensation coming from my mouth, which was a very wonderful feeling. The sunset turned the entire sea red, and on a calm evening, occasionally a few seabirds flew over from the sky, then slowly disappeared into the sky. As they faded away, their calls. Lodi, who was half sitting, coughed violently until she finally vomited out the excess water in her body after a period of time, and her spirit slightly improved. Nami, thank you. If it weren't for you and me. Lodi said as he looked up, but the scene before him stunned him. The clothes soaked in seawater tightly wrapped around Nami's body, finally unable to conceal the already formed curves. There were 2 blushes on her youthful and lovely face, and her small mouth pursed slightly, looking at Lodi with a slightly angry expression. Bang! A blow that disregards defense. When do you want to see it? Nami's head was crossed with a Chinese character, and her blush became even more pronounced. It's not that bad either, Lodi said casually, rubbing the painful head that had been hit. He looked up and saw that Nami's eyes were burning, and she was almost furious. A few drops of cold sweat couldn't help but burst out from her head. Hee, just a joke, Lodi waved her right hand, intentionally or unintentionally distancing herself from Nami. At this moment, Lodi, who had calmed down, felt that her body seemed to have changed, but she couldn't say anything. Lodi slowly closed her eyes and felt her condition, until it was a while before she slowly opened her eyes. Nami stared at Lodi in a daze. In her impression, Lodi had always been lazy. Always full of drowsiness, with a faint expression. The face only shows some unusual expressions when needed, and there is always a hint of confusion and fatigue in the depths of the eyes. There is not at all the vitality and vigor that people of this age group should have. I have never seen it before. It turned out that there was still a moment of excitement in Lodi's eyes. Nami felt a bit incredulous. Is this young man in front of her still the same Lodi she knew? Yes, Lodi is really excited now, and this feeling is the first time since she came to this world. This is a joy that comes from within, and something that has been hindering oneself for months has become no longer a problem due to an accident. On the contrary, Lodi has realized that this means she will face a progress that makes herself feel fearful. In more than a decade, no, just give me a few years, and no one in the world will be able to hinder my progress. Nami, Lodi spoke excitedly, as the only friend in the world, Lodi felt it was necessary to share her joy with her. What? Looking at Lodi's excited expression, Nami felt a bit at a loss. I will become very strong, Lodi said confidently. At this moment, Lodi's face was filled with immense confidence and a genuine emotion. The exhaustion in her eyes had disappeared, leaving only a mysterious star-like presence. Unprecedented goodness, the whole body seems to be thrilled to discover something extraordinary. From a cellular level of joy, Nami looked at Lodi inexplicably, then was surprised to find that the entire sea had disappeared, and even the small boat sitting there was nowhere to be found. And now I am sitting on the beach. This is my ability, Lodi continued as she stood up from the beach, looking at the endless ocean in the distance. The real and false world, the ability of the fruit of dreams. Nami was surprised by everything in front of her, but she couldn't understand Lodi's meaning. There is a fruit in this world that, when consumed, will be cursed by the sea and lose its ability to swim. Chapter 9. Opportunities for Becoming Strong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Which idiot would eat this kind of fruit? Nami picked up a pile of sand with both hands, and the sand flowed back into the beach through the gaps between her fingers. People in this world have a strong ability to accept strange phenomena because there are too many strange things. Although I don't know what happened, at least there won't be any danger since it was caused by Lodi. So Nami's curiosity slowly took over everything. Wait, Nami realized something and looked at Lodi with a strange look. You didn't eat this kind of fruit, did you? Lodi said silently as she looked at Nami and touched the scar on her forehead with her index finger. Don't underestimate this kind of fruit, anyone who knows will go crazy about it. Just because of its value, each fruit is at least 100 million bellies or more, and... What, 100 million Bailey? Nami excitedly grabbed Lodi's collar with both hands. You actually ate it, spit it out for me quickly. Watching Nami enter a ferocious state, Lodi's forehead bulged with black lines for a few days and said helplessly, how could this be done? It's been several months now. What? Nami withdrew her hand in disappointment, looking at Lodi as if she were looking at the enemy who was stealing her money. Lodi gave a bitter smile and continued, this fruit is called the devil fruit. Although the eater loses the ability to swim, they also gain some kind of ability. Nami looked at Lodi thoughtfully. Put the human soul into the dream I have created, and then defeat the opponent in the dream. In the dream, the user can change the environment, create things, and even control the opponent. That's not like a god. Nami looked at Lodi in surprise. Yes, at first I thought the same way. I touched the scar on my head with my fingertips, but obviously it's not that simple. With Lodi's words, black cracks suddenly appeared in the entire space, constantly spreading, and then the entire space turned into fragments. The two of them seemed to be suspended in mid-air, with nothing around them, everything in the hollow. This is the most primitive state of dream space, and then the user tries to create various things. Just as the words fell, a bright rose suddenly appeared in Lodi's hand. Even creatures can do it, and a butterfly appeared out of thin air. The more complex things, the stronger organisms, the more difficult things to achieve, the greater the spiritual power required to create. But, Nami took the flower from Lodi's hand and touched it, as if it were real. She asked in confusion, that beach was so huge just now, didn't it take a lot of energy? In fact, only a tiny part of the beach where we are is located is real. The rest are illusory images, and creating images will consume much less. Isn't that to say, as long as your spiritual power is stronger, you can create more things? In theory, it is like this, but in fact, it has many similarities with ordinary people's dreams. It is also a mental activity. It is not difficult to suddenly come up with an object, but it is not easy to maintain it all the time. How to say it? Lodi pondered for a moment. It's like you've been thinking about a problem for a long time, and you'll feel mentally exhausted, but at the same time, your body will also feel hungry. The mental activity itself is also consuming physical energy. Dreams are like intense mental activities, and the energy in the external body is constantly consumed, and users in the dream will also feel this consumption. For those who are physically and mentally strong, isn't this ability invincible? You can think of it this way, but in fact, strength itself is only relative. For example, when encountering an opponent who is really much stronger than the user, his casual strike in the dream may cause the dream to collapse. My physical fitness is really poor compared to the strong people in this world, which also means I cannot maintain my dreams for too long, Lodi said helplessly. As long as the spirit is strong enough, it's possible to determine the winner in a very short time, isn't it? Nami quickly reacted. Of course, every time you use the fruit ability, although the physical improvement is not very obvious, the mental growth is rapidly increasing. With a hint of helplessness, Lodi continued, the fruit of dreams has a great flaw, which is that after each use of its ability, it not only reveals the mental and physical exhaustion in reality, but also integrates this exhaustion into its soul. The previous situation can be solved with enough rest, but the exhaustion that integrates into the soul recovers very slowly. Accumulating too much will dissolve my will, which greatly hinders my progress. So your usual lifeless appearance is not innate? Nami asked curiously. What do you want to express? Lodi's mouth twitched and several black lines appeared on her head. So why do you look so energetic now? Yeah, you can see it, because I've discovered an amazing secret. Lodi slowly curved her lips with a hint of excitement in her tone. While seawater restricts the fruit's ability, it actually washes away the damage caused by the fruit's ability. Exhaustion originating from the soul.